Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Danny Lichtenfeld, Director of the Brattleboro Museum. It's my pleasure to be your host for tonight's presentation by Anne Spalter on NFT art. Like many of you, I'm sure, NFTs started catching my attention sometime in the last 6 to 9 months. And as the director of a contemporary art museum, I felt like this was something I needed to understand. So I tried to keep up with the news items that started flowing daily, but honestly, that didn't help me feel like I was getting any closer to understanding on the topic. So that's when I reached out to my friend Anne Spalter, a pioneering artist, scholar, and collector of digital art, an amazingly lucid thinker, and as I'm sure you'll agree by the end of the night tonight, a terrific educator. So in just a moment, I'm going to ask Anne to join me on screen because she really helped me advance my understanding about NFTs, and we thought that our Brattleboro Museum audience might enjoy hearing from her as well. The plan is that Anne is going to talk for about, 30 to 45 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up to your questions and comments. If you'd like to submit a question or comment, if you're here on Zoom, please use the Q&A button on your screen. That's different than the chat button, by the way. You can submit your questions or comments at any time, but we'll get to them at the end of Anne's talk. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you can type your questions or comments there, and we'll keep an eye on that too. All right, so I'm going to ask Anne to turn on her camera and mic now, and while she's doing that, hi Anne. I'm going to say a little bit about you now, so bear with me. Digital mixed media artist Anne Spalter is an academic pioneer who founded the original digital fine arts programs at Brown University and the Rhode Island School of Design in the 1990s, and authored the internationally taught textbook, The Computer and the Visual Arts. Anne is noted for her large-scale public projects. MTA Arts commissioned Anne to create a 52-screen digital art installation called New York Dreaming, which remained on view in one of its most crowded commuter hubs, that's Fulton Center, for just under a year. Anne's 2019 large-scale projects included a 47,000 square foot LED video work on the Hong Kong harbor. Anne Spalter's work is in the permanent collections of the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Albright Knox Art Gallery, the Rhode Island School of Design Museum, the Museum of Crypto Art, and others. And alongside her studio practice, Anne continues to lecture on digital art practice and theory. Anne, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for doing this. It's great to see you. I'm going to let you take it away now. I'm going to leave the screen and then let me know when you're ready for Q&A and I'll come back on.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Danny. And welcome everyone to this webinar explainer talk on NFTs. One of mine is behind me, but mostly you're going to be seeing my presentation. So I'm going to share my screen and an introduction to NFT art. So you've probably been seeing the crazy headlines. People are buying them, people hate them, people love them. A JPEG file sold for almost $70 million. Like, what on earth is going on with this? Why would anyone buy a JPEG file at all? Never mind for $70 million. So, which is actually a really legitimate question that I myself had. So I'm going to explain all of that and the different terms that you might be reading about in these articles so that the next one you read, you can understand it better. And whether you love NFTs or hate them, at least understand the vocabulary and some of the issues that are at stake here. So these are some of the things that I'll be talking about. What the heck is an NFT? What is the blockchain? Are there multiple blockchains? What's a token? What's an art drop? How is it different from a regular art show? What is Ethereum? What is Ether? Is this all made up? As I said before, why would someone pay $70 million for a digital file or collection of digital files all put into one image? For those of you in the audience who are artists, you might be wondering, should I be making an NFT? Should I be getting in on this? Is this the future, or is this something that I should be avoiding like the plague? If I'm an art collector, do I need to understand this? Should I be collecting these? If I don't collect them now, will they go up in value and won't be able to afford them? What is the big excitement? And something I'm very interested in as a collector of digital art in general, why are people so emotional about this one way or the other? So in the early days of digital artwork, some artists were actually, one artist we collect named Manfred Moore was talking about his artwork and someone threw a tomato at him. And this is 1972. But there's just been a long history of people having kind of extreme emotional reactions to digital art and developments in digital art and technology and art. So I'm interested in the source of some of those emotions. And my art illustration for these points are from an artist named Jonathan Paul, who goes by Desire, Obtain, Cherish, and did these cool NFTs that are animated and have commentary sort of a la Jenny Holzer that seem appropriate in particular for the NFT world. A little bit more background on me so you can understand why I care about this topic and how I got involved with it. My art training was very traditional at the Rhode Island School of Design, drawing, painting. And then I also was transferred actually to Brown University and was a math major. I came back and worked in the computer science department for many years, doing research on user interface design and working as the artist in residence. So I had a whole academic career, and these are some papers that I published. And then at around 2008, I thought, if I don't go back to my artwork full time, I'm never really going to be an artist. It's hard to do it after work and in between things. So I took a sabbatical and ended up never going back. While I was there, though, I completed this book, The Computer and the Visual Arts, which I wrote to help me in teaching my courses because I hadn't been able to find a resource that had the history of computer art and the theory and the art history, and sort of the aesthetics and examples of early digital artists. When I was writing the book, I wanted to meet these people that had been the pioneers of digital art. And as I got to know them, I was shocked to find that they were really sort of ostracized from the traditional art world. And Michael Spalter, who was an art history major at Brown, said, you know what, these artists are like the Impressionists. Like, they all know each other. They've been working for decades making this amazing art, and the Academy hates them and wants nothing to do with them. This is going to be important, and we should try to support these people. And we began, as we were able, to acquire pieces here and there, and very slowly started building a collection that now has over 800 pieces in it. I think it's actually probably one of the largest, if not the largest, collection of early digital artwork. And because we came to it from a place of education and teaching, we have put the entire collection online. So you can see it at spalterdigital.com. And go in, and there's works by people you might not have heard of, like Roman Veratsko, who is an amazing digital artist, who is a monk until he met his wife, who was a nun, and they left and got married, to artists that you've definitely heard of, like David Hockney, who's experimented with technology and art in amazing ways for a long period of time. So I encourage people to explore that if you're interested in this history. And now it also includes some NFTs. About 9 months ago, about a year ago, a little bit more now, when the pandemic started, everyone was asking everyone else to be on panels discussing digital artwork, and everyone says yes because you didn't have to travel anywhere. But one in particular that sort of changed my life in terms of NFTs was this one, The Art of Collecting NFTs. I agreed to be on the panel, and then I realized I didn't know what an NFT was. I thought, oh, it must be something I'm really familiar with, but I just don't know it. And I started to read about it, and I realized I had never heard of it. I had no idea what it was. So I began to read articles and explore, and I thought, this is the most lunatic thing I've ever heard of. And this is from someone who has been in the field of digital art now forever. And I thought what many people do when they first hear about it is, why would I pay for something that anyone else can see and download? It's like paying for someone's Instagram post. And I asked my friend Jason Bailey, who writes about these topics, and he said, yes, I understand why you said that. Read this thing I wrote. And he sent me an article he had written actually in 2017, maybe a little bit premature. He had announced that the blockchain art market is here. And he pointed out these things that you get with a secure way of selling a digital file, that you know who sold it, who bought it, how many editions there are, which one you own. You can see the whole provenance of the artwork. Artists can get royalties, all things I'm about to discuss. And I read it and I thought, oh, maybe there is something to this. And that started off my interest in it. And I began to become educated about the whole space and how this could really change the entire field of digital artwork. So I've been an evangelist for digital art for decades now, but I think this can actually make it something that really becomes accepted by the regular art world. And it's because of these technological things that might seem a bit obscure and weird, but are actually very important to understand. So the first one is the blockchain. What is the blockchain? It's basically a fancy word for a database. A database is like an Excel spreadsheet, a little bit more complicated, but you store data, you can search it. The blockchain stores data in blocks. So instead of like one little cell in your spreadsheet, you have a bunch of data that's all stored together and it's chained together. So each block refers to the one before it, and each one has a unique identity that if you tamper with it, its sort of identifier gets changed so that you know it's been tampered with. But it's called a blockchain because it's blocks of data that are connected to each other. And instead of being stored on someone's computer or on a corporation's computer, different versions of it, identical versions of it, are stored all over the world on many different computers. So if there's a piece of data that's put into the blockchain, it's stored and verified all over the place. And that's why it's so secure and hard to tamper with. So even if one person's node goes offline or someone tries to change it, it wouldn't match up with the many other nodes that have already verified that data and stored it. So it's a very interesting technological development that enables you to keep track of transactions and use cryptography to make sure that they're secure. The cryptography part is a combination of public and private cryptographic keys by which you verify this data that's being stored. And that's why it's cryptocurrency and crypto everything in this lingo. So the little thing on the bottom, it's a peer-to-peer network. No one computer is any more important than the other. And you may have heard the word decentralized. It's just everywhere. So each thing is replicated and there's no one central authority, which can be good and bad. It's redundant, it's pretty tamper-proof, but there's also not someone you can call to help you. Or if you do a transaction on the network and you want to reverse it or you made it by mistake, you're just out of luck. It's not like Bank of America where you can call up and say, I've initiated a transaction and I need to undo it. You know, can you help me? There's no one to call. It's a network running all by itself. The cryptocurrency on it are described in terms of tokens. So a token is the cryptocurrency version of a coin or a bill, just like we have with US dollars or, you know, quarters or something. And they're named after their blockchains. So the Ethereum blockchain has an Ether token, Bitcoin has Bitcoins, and each one has a little visual image, you know, like as if it were a coin. And if you look at a list of all of the different cryptocurrencies, it starts to sound like some sort of sci-fi thing. There's one called Tron. It sounds made up, and they are kind of made up. You know, Bitcoin itself is developed by someone named Satoshi that no one knows exactly who the person is. So that's kind of like if you're banking at Bank of America, but no one knows who the CEO is or the board is, or they're mysterious Banksy-like figures that no one can track down, it's a very bizarre and kind of mysterious thing. But it does seem to be working. Ethereum was developed by a 21-year-old. Some of these currencies, you don't really know who is behind them, how secure they are. It's definitely a little bit wild, wild west. So if it sounds made up, you can make up your own security. You could make a cryptocurrency. And that's exactly what happened. Is something called Dogecoin, which I thought was some sort of ducal Venetian reference, but turns out it was based on a meme of this dog, which they called Doge. So this Doge is all over the internet with different captions underneath him because of his funny expression. And some engineers at Adobe and somewhere else put some Comic Sans font type around him and made a cryptocurrency that remarkably today has a market capitalization of $62 billion. This is in part due to Mark Cuban tweeting about it, Elon Musk tweeting about it. So it's money if you believe it's money. The idea that someone could create money based on an internet meme, maybe 5 years ago would have seemed impossible, but in 2021, here we are. I thought, I have a funny looking dog. His name is Carl. Maybe I can make a cryptocurrency and I would call it Carl Coin. And this would be like one Carl. So you never know, you might see it out there. So that's the blockchain, the tokens, cryptocurrency. The tokens for cryptocurrency are all interchangeable. If you have one Bitcoin, it's the same as any other Bitcoin. One Ether is the same as any other Ether. So they're fungible tokens, and fungible is just a fancy word for interchangeable. And the idea between the artworks is that they're non-fungible tokens. And Ethereum is used for this because Ethereum has a scripting language with it, and you can include a contract with your token. So when you have a non-fungible token, it has a contract with it and artwork description. And although it doesn't actually have the artwork stored with it, which I'll talk about later, obviously you have an art image. It's not interchangeable for any other art image. So it's a way of using cryptocurrency and the token system of cryptocurrency and the blockchain system for having tokens, but that aren't interchangeable, that are all unique. So you buy them and sell them with the same types of transactions as any other cryptocurrency, but each one is unique and non-interchangeable. And that's why they're non-fungible tokens or NFTs. And you might hear them also described as nifties. So there's a website called Nifty Gateway. It was a really long time before I realized that Nifty was saying NFT out loud, Nifty, NFT. That's what it is. So it's in this contract that goes with an NFT. Essentially, it's the type of information that you have with the creation and sale of an artwork. Who made the artwork? When was it created? Who bought it? When was it sold? Who bought it after that? And when was it sold? And what price did they buy it for? I actually got a hold of Super Rare's contract. That's one of the websites that you can create NFTs on and buy and sell them. And it's 26 pages of code. So obviously there's other stuff on there as well. But everything in there is visible to everyone, which is a shocking change from the traditional art world. So if you go into a gallery or museum to buy artwork by an artist, sometimes you can see some previous sales data or get a hold of it. Or if you subscribe to an auction website, you can see previous auction sales of an artist. But actually finding out the prices at which an artist has sold work in the past, or even the prices at which a particular artwork has sold, is very difficult to do. And it's kind of considered private data. But in the NFT world, this is all completely transparent and completely public. So it's a very different experience. And I was on the phone a few days ago with someone who asked me about the price of an NFT that I sold. And they kind of paused and they said, I don't know if I should be asking you what it sold for. And I said, you know what, like you could ask or not ask, but you can always look it up because you can go on the website and anyone can see it. So I might as well just tell you. But it felt so different to tell someone the price that I had sold my artwork for, because it's like someone asking your salary or, like what you bought your house for. It feels like something that you don't share because of how the art world has been. But in the NFT world, all of that is completely public and transparent and everyone can see it. So it kind of cuts both ways. Like sometimes maybe you don't want all that information to be public, but I think on balance, it's a positive thing to have out there because it's been so difficult in the past to get that type of information. So I mentioned that the token doesn't actually contain the artwork. And this might seem like a technical point that you don't need to understand, but I think it is important because the artwork is stored separately. It takes a lot of energy the way the current blockchains, most of them are set up, which I'll be talking about in a minute. And so it doesn't make sense to store big files on the blockchain and have everyone duplicating those files and verifying them. So instead, the artwork is stored only once on something, and I'm not making this up, called the Interplanetary File System, or IPFS. And the token points to the file. So there's just sort of an address of where to find that artwork. And the problem with this, it's good energy-wise and it's efficient and it works most of the time, but those pointers in that part of the contract are specific to the different platforms where you might be minting, creating your NFT. So let's say I make my NFT on Known Origin, which is one of the websites, and then Known Origin goes out of business and they haven't updated those pointers with whoever bought it or it just disappears. I may be unable to find the artwork for the NFT that I got. And apparently this has happened to people where they own the token, but they can no longer see the artwork. So they go to the token, but it's just an empty file with nothing to view. You might have heard that one of the exciting things for artists is the ability to get royalties on resale of your work. And that might sound like obviously it's a good thing and you'd be for it. It's hard to understand how exciting it is as an artist to receive a royalty on a sale of your work. So, I mean, I always thought it was good, but the first time that I got a little, ding in my email box and it said, this artwork has been resold and you've received, it was a few $100, it's gone into your Ethernet wallet. I was so excited. I was really emotional about it. I felt like crying. I thought, this is so amazing. This is a really different experience as an artist. And my work wasn't reselling for dramatically different prices, but for artists whose work has sold for a few hundred or a few $1,000s and then see their artwork sell for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction, they don't get any of that money. With NFTs, they would be getting, it's usually 10%. So that can really add up. It can be a huge, huge difference to your income as an artist. One of the issues is that right now those royalties are platform specific, kind of like the pointers. So if you make an artwork on Super Rare and it's resold on Super Rare, you're getting those royalties. If someone buys it and then it's resold on a different platform, like a general sort of open marketplace like OpenSea, that royalty part of the contract does not have to be honored and you might not get that royalty. The buyer basically is paying that royalty. So that's an issue and people are working on a standardized way of having the royalty put in the contract so that it would be enforceable across any platform. And I hope that works out. And this is a good article that looks back at all the attempts that have been made to have artists ensure that royalties get paid to them. And I didn't realize how many times that this had been tried and unfortunately had failed. So I hope this is a way that does work in the future. So back to this panel that I was on. I thought, how can I be on this panel and talk about NFTs and collecting them and making them if I haven't made one? So I thought, I'm going to make one. How hard can it be? And it was actually a little bit complicated. And I thought, if I work with computers every day and I thought this was complicated, probably other people will also find it complicated. So I made a little guide, and it's sort of like a super simplified dummies guide to making an NFT, but feel free to use it. And it just goes through how to set up an account on Coinbase, which is a cryptocurrency exchange, how to buy some cryptocurrency like Ether, how to set up a cryptocurrency wallet like MetaMask, transfer your crypto into your MetaMask wallet, connect it to a site like SuperRare, and make an NFT. So it's a few steps that you have to go through. It's not that bad. After you do it once or twice, you'll be a pro and it won't seem that complicated. But the first time you do it, it seems super bizarre. And you also feel like you're sending money around into literally the ether, and you don't know if it's going to arrive in your wallet. Sometimes it takes 10 or 15 minutes. You're not sure if you've sent it to the correct address or where it's going, and it can be a little bit unnerving. I was very excited when these things sold. It took only about a week, and it was a crazy experience to sell things online. And it's another thing, kind of like seeing the price of things exposed everywhere. In the fine art world, it's looked down upon to sell your artwork online. And maybe if you're Jeff Koons, you know, you can sell kind of merchandise and things online or prints or something. But as a sort of mid-level artist, I can't put a shopping cart on my website and say, here, buy a painting online. There's a stigma associated with it. But between NFTs and the pandemic, some of that is going away. But it was so exciting to sell something online and not feel like I was going to be looked down upon for doing that. It was also incredible just to see money pop into my bank account, my Ethernet wallet account, so immediately, and not go through a long process of going through a gallery, and a process that those of you in the art world know can often take quite a bit of time. Of interest too, for people who follow crypto at all, this was the end of August. One ETH was $335. I had to update this minutes before giving this talk because it's now over 4K. So it's also been a crazy ride for people in the space, just seeing it go up that much. So it's really like a brave new world. And there's a lot of pros. I'm going to do pros and cons. So the pros first, putting up art for sale online. It has to be online. It's an NFT. There's no other way to sell it, pretty much. It could be through a gallery or someone else, but ultimately it also has to be online. You connect directly with your collectors. They see it online, they click a button and buy it. You can reach out. I usually find them on Twitter, which is where all the crypto people hang out. I had to kind of move my social media life from Instagram to Twitter. I write to people. I say, thank you so much for acquiring my work. The collectors are super friendly in this space, and actually the whole community is. And it's great to write back and forth. There's no shipping charge. There's no customs. There's no packaging. There's no insurance. They just own the artwork right away. You get paid right away, which I have worked with galleries where I literally never got paid. I worked with a gallery where I sold 12 works and was never paid a dime. I've worked with places where it was a lot of work to get paid at all. It's a miracle to wake up and look and see that you made money overnight when you were sleeping. So I think it's an experience that as artists, most of us have just not had in the past. And it's a very wonderful feeling. The commissions are also low compared with the traditional gallery structure. And these platforms are not doing the same things for you as a gallery. So it's not directly comparable, but they usually only take 15% versus 50%. So you get more of the money as well. It's a digital product, but I'm not providing technical support the way I do for videos and other things that I've sold. And then again, the royalties. So You sell it, someone else sells it, they sell it again, and you keep getting money from it. The transparency factor, um, which is good. Maybe you don't always want people to see what your work sold for or whether it's changed. So far, my work has gone up in value, but it could go down in value, and then everyone would see that as well. So it makes you vulnerable in a way that you weren't before because you could hide prices from people. The community of NFT creators and collectors is very friendly. It's very open and accessible. It's mostly on Twitter. Um, it's been really nice to be a part of it. It's very welcoming. People help each other. It is hard getting started sometimes. I found that people are very supportive of each other and each other's artwork. It's welcoming of people too that maybe haven't had traditional art training and don't speak kind of art lingo. You can kind of come in from any background and start making visual things and be included in the process, which I think is really great. The bonus also is that ETH keeps going up, so that I think I've made almost as much just keeping the ETH in my wallet as from selling artwork. But what could go wrong? A lot of things can go wrong. Cryptocurrency is not backed by the government. It can disappear. Cryptocurrency exchanges have been hacked and millions of dollars have been made off with. There's no guarantee that Bitcoin will be worth anything in the future. It fluctuates wildly. All these cryptocurrencies do. Although there is security in the technology behind them, there are also security issues. Perhaps the most immediate thing for most people is that you can lose your password. So I bank at Bank of America, so I keep using it as an example. You lose your password at Bank of America, you call them up, they ask for your social security number and your pet's name or whatever, and you get a new password. If you lose your password to your crypto wallet, you lose everything in it. And because the artworks are tokens, if you've collected artwork in that wallet, you lose everything you've collected. So you could conceivably lose not only your cryptocurrency, but your art collection all at once because you forgot your password. So you set a password and you're given 12 words as a seed phrase that you can use to create a new password. And I have those copied everywhere. I sent them to people and I'm like, you may not know what these are, but store them for me. Because I live in fear that I'm going to forget it and misplace those 12 words and be out a lot of money. It seems very problematic to me. The contracts that go with Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies have, to my knowledge, never been tested in a court of law. So what exactly you own and what you can do with that NFT, it's not entirely clear. There are no intellectual property rights that get transferred by default with the contract. Like you don't have the right to make prints from an NFT and do other things with it. You just have the right to resell it. But so far, the legal profession has not really weighed in on those contracts. And there have been instances of people minting other people's work or copying their ideas. So I can take someone else's work potentially online and mint it and say I did it or say I'm that person. And it can be hard to figure that out and track down fakers online. The value of cryptocurrency could go down and those pointers can disappear. Something you may have read about and heard people become extremely exercised about is energy usage. So to me, this is kind of in keeping with people's extreme hostility to the digital art world, to Manfred Moore having the tomato thrown at him, and Jean-Pierre Hébert, who's an amazing artist who recently, unfortunately, passed away, being literally physically thrown out of a gallery in the early 80s when they realized he was using the computer. There's an animosity about people using digital technology that's hard to fully comprehend. It is true that cryptocurrency networks, the way they are now run, they use something called proof of work, where computers have to solve a mathematical problem to compete for verifying these chunks of data. And they do use a lot of energy, which is a bad thing. But a lot of things use a lot of energy. So you can check out this article that's linked below, this pie chart that shows different things using energy and contributing to carbon dioxide, contributing to climate change. It's actually the contribution of the whole cryptocurrency network, not NFTs, but all of cryptocurrency trading is so tiny, you can't even really see it on the pie chart. There's some reason to believe that even if people completely stopped making NFTs, it wouldn't change the energy usage of crypto in general anyway. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to make cryptocurrencies better. So there's another way of verifying things called proof of stake, where instead of solving a mathematical problem, you actually put up some of your currency to show your willingness to verify the node. So there are chains already using that, such as the Tezos blockchain, and there are websites like Hic-et-Nunc where you can mint things using that blockchain, and they use much less energy. And theoretically, Ethereum itself is going to change completely to be a proof of stake network, and will use basically 99% less energy than it does right now. There's also new currencies using proof of space, which have led to a shortage of hard drives. So there's different ways that this can be approached. Basically, there are technological solutions, and in all likelihood, within a year, this won't be an issue at all. So not to say that there is no problem or that people have made this up or are lying, but the amount of attention that's been paid to this, I think, is out of all proportion to its actual impact on the environment and its relationship to other art things. So if you're an artist using fiberglass or something, you do not get viciously attacked online the way you do as an artist using NFTs. So I think some of that hatred of NFT creators is misplaced, but I'm happy to take questions about that too at the end. There are other pitfalls though as well. Every transaction that you do on any of these crypto currency networks, blockchains, incurs a fee. So there's a fee when you buy cryptocurrency. There's a fee when you transfer it to your wallet. There's a fee when you mint your artwork. There's a fee when you set a price for your artwork. There's a fee if you set up an auction for your artwork. Someone's making money on the fees, the people verifying all the transactions. And in fact, if your artwork is not selling for very much, you could even end up losing money on your sale of an artwork, which is detailed in this article that's linked below. Someone looked through all of the work on OpenSea, which sort of agglomerates all the pieces that are out there, and found that most artwork actually sells for under $100. Current minting fees are well over $100. So not everyone is getting super rich selling NFTs. It's not like all artists that put up an image, suddenly someone buys it and you're making thousands of dollars overnight. That is not the reality of the situation. On the other hand, many of the things on OpenSea would not qualify even remotely as artwork. They're collectibles. They're not meant to be art at all. So it's a little bit apples to oranges comparing this to things that would have sold as art in a traditional art venue. There's also the issues of fakes, and I myself was the victim of this. So there's an artist named Kevin Abosch who's made one of the earliest NFTs, and he did a whole series with these code pieces. I saw one come across my screen on OpenSea for what I thought was a great price. And I don't know, I was multitasking or something. I bought it and I was putting it up online and looking at it more closely. Actually, my studio manager, Phil Shaw, was putting it up online, and he said, you know, this doesn't say Kevin Abosch on it. And I said, what are you talking about? It's obviously his piece, you know, I can tell from looking at it. And I looked in, and it was someone who just took his pieces, copied exactly what they looked like, and made look-alike work and marketed it with very similar language. So if you weren't paying attention, you would buy it like I did. And because it's the blockchain, it's decentralized, I can't write to anyone. I can't get my money back. Fortunately, ETH was a lot lower when I bought it. I actually wrote to Kevin Abosch. I said, just so you know, like someone's basically pretending to be you on OpenSea and selling a work that looks identical to the work that you're selling. And we went back and forth. We ended up trading work. So I did end up getting a Kevin Abosch piece, but I had to go through a lot of humiliation first before I got it. The other thing that's strange is that so far anyway, it's kind of parallel art worlds with NFTs and traditional art. There, I think, very few collectors of traditional art who are buying NFTs, and the collectors of NFTs that I've spoken to have by and large never purchased any traditional artwork. So right now they're all in the press together, but they're really working separately. And some artists have crossed over, like Shepard Fairey, who did a great piece and gave money to Amnesty International from it. John Gerard, who did one of his pieces, he made an NFT from, but mostly it's been separate, which is interesting. It'll be interesting to see now that more galleries are starting to encourage their artists to make NFTs and are selling them through their gallery websites, whether the worlds start to come together more. This was an opinion piece by a data scientist who looked, and these little colored blobs are the main collectors on the site Super Rare, and you can see that there are just a handful of collectors that were responsible for most of the purchases. So you might look through these sites and think it's all a bunch of cats and sci-fi and shiny 3D modeling. And Jerry Saltz, who's a famous art critic, said it's a combination of crapola, kitsch, and dull, and went on to further lambast NFTs, although he's kind of come around. He's done some YouTube things and he's written a bunch more articles and has become more open-minded about the NFT space. I know a lot of artists making NFTs, and obviously I myself have made them. So I thought, yeah, I think it's important that someone curate a show to let everyone know that there is a lot of really great artwork out there. It's not all shiny 3D modeling or something based on internet memes, but there are really serious artists in this space doing exciting work. So I curated this show called NFT Now. You can see it at TExpressionism.com, and it's through a really cool group called TExpressionism, inspired by Expressionism, but using technology. And I think if we have some time after the Q&A, I'll give a little tour of the show and some of the NFTs in it. But in any case, I encourage people to go check it out. There's an essay there and descriptions of all the NFTs. And it's a good jumping off place to see some of the artwork and the range of artwork that's being created. And in particular, some of the generative art NFTs. And those are works that, like the earliest computer artwork, are made with algorithms. And when artists began working that way, they would write a program and it would make different images and kind of a family of images. And then the artist would choose the ones they thought looked the best. In this, the algorithm itself is on the blockchain. So there's not a pointer to it. It's actually on the blockchain. And it creates a whole family of things. Let's see if we can pop in here. And go to one of my favorite ones called Ringers. So you can see it makes a whole bunch of things that all look similar. But when you buy one, you don't know what your piece is going to look like. So when a project is live, there's a purchase button. So you have an idea of what it would look like. You know, it's going to have these little dots and lines through it, but you don't know what your piece will exactly be. So it's very exciting. And I think is kind of the draws directly on kind of its ancestry of early digital artwork, but is a modern blockchain version of it. So that's something fun to also look at, and we can look at that more too at the end after Q&A if we have time. But I just want to make everyone aware of that because I think it really ties back to the beginning of computer art. This is just a list of some of the main platforms for creating works if you're looking to make some NFTs. And if you are concerned about the energy usage, hicketnunk.xyz uses the Tezos blockchain, so it uses almost no energy, and the minting prices are very low. You know what? And I had a slide about minting that somehow didn't get in here, or there was a graphic about it. When I started making NFTs, the minting price, I think my first minting price was $12. And today, I think someone told me they paid $400 to mint something. So, but I think it's around $200 now. On Hicket Nunk, it's literally 35 cents. So it's much more economical. And these are just some resources, the guide, if you're interested in Hic-et-Nunc, some detailed onboarding instructions, because it's a little complicated to get started, some pros and cons with the energies is a problem, it's not a problem, a whole timeline of crypto art from the very beginning up till today, and some, I think, good commentary with some YouTube videos. So I want to thank everyone very much, and now hand it back to Danny, and hopefully have time for some questions. And I'll start my screen sharing.
Thank you, Anne. That was fantastic. You gave us
And if you hear clicking and clacking, it's my dog running around. Just if in case anyone wonders what that noise is.
That's Carl?
Mm-hmm. That's Carl, the crypto dog.
Yeah, I'm ready to invest in Carl coin when you roll out that currency. Thank you.
So it goes away.
Thank you, everyone who has tuned in. This would be a great time if you have questions or comments and you want to drop them in the Q&A box. We'll get to those in just a moment. I see that someone has put something here in the chat, which I'll get to in a second. Again, it's a little easier for me to keep track of the questions and things if you use the Q&A box rather than the chat. And I'm also keeping an eye on any comments that may be coming in over on Facebook Live. So, Anne, I just have a couple of quick questions maybe to get us started. And again, I encourage people.
Yeah, and I can see the Q&A ones too. Or you want to just like funnel questions?
No, that's fine. If you see them, that's fine. Either way. So you have a bunch of links in your slide presentation. You want us to, we could make the slide presentation available on our website when we get the recording of this tonight.
Sure.
If you send that to me, that would be great. And then people can access those links that way. Thank you. Here's a question. So I understood you to be saying that the artwork, wherever the artwork may be, whether it's a JPEG or an MP4 or whatever it is, and the token are separate things. That the token is sort of a pointer to the artwork. Could the NFT system of transactions be used to point to brick and mortar art, like paintings and things like that, or does it have to be digital art?
Yeah, there's a company called Verisar, and there's another one, Artery, and they link kind of the blockchain to physical artwork. So there can be something on the physical artwork that you would scan in, like a QR code or something embedded literally like physically in the piece, a chip or something, where the blockchain token part is kind of a digital certificate of authenticity that would go with the artwork, which I think is an interesting thing. You know, forgery and misattribution are enormous problems in the regular art world. So if blockchain can help with that, I think that's a great use for it as well. And obviously not all art should be digital, so.
Right. And then presumably if there is that barcode or whatever it is, that chip that is somehow connected to that artwork, then some of the other benefits that you're describing of sales that are based on the blockchain and you know, tied to NFTs could be realized then as well. Like when that piece changes hands, is auctioned off, is sold on a secondary market, it's scanned, and then the royalties could go to the artist in the way that it's working now with NFT sales.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, someone could remove the QR code or fake it, but someone can change the pointer too, or the pointer. I mean, there are technical issues. So it could be an improvement over what we have now, but I don't think it's 100% foolproof in every way. It's definitely a system that's in progress. But I think it offers a lot of things that have been lacking in the regular art world, you know, which is a world that can use improvement. So I think that it's, you know, it shows some things where it's like, wow, like we could be doing things better in a way that would benefit everyone involved, you know, that, but I wanted to, someone asked about minting on OpenSea, and they do a thing called lazy minting. So you put the artwork up, but it's not minted until it's actually sold. So you don't have to pay the minting price until it's actually sold. So you would pay it if it's sold, but you don't, and that's good because you don't have the energy usage until it's sold also. And so that, you know, that's a good approach, I think. Super Rare makes you mint it right away. I think Nifty Gateway now is taking on artwork and they're minting it in big batches. You know, so I think sites are trying to, you know, offset their energy usage, and they're buying carbon offsets and things as well. And lazy minting is a way to also do that. Then if it's not sold, it's not minted and it doesn't use the energy.
So, Anne, was that a question that came in the Q&A?
Yeah, the Q&A, and then there was a price about auctioning, because I didn't talk about auctions at all. And it's a very auction heavy environment. So the default is that your work comes up and it doesn't have a price and people bid on it. You know, and then you can decide when it reaches a price that you want to sell it for. So it's a little bit like eBay, but you can also set a price. So I'm super impatient. So I put it up and I'm like, this time I am not setting a price. I'm going to wait. It's going to go up. I'm going to make millions of dollars. And then literally like within 4 or 5 hours, I always set a price. Because I'm like, oh, it's going to sell faster if I set a price. But other people have more patience. And I think it pays off if you wait and then people bid. And then there are different auction styles. So you could have just an auction that goes on till you decide you want to sell it to the highest bidder. You can have a timed auction like Foundation. Once your reserve price is met, there's a 24-hour auction and then it's sold to the highest bidder. There's all different styles of auction. I've been learning about all these different styles of auction. Sometimes you can choose a style, sometimes it's specific to the platform that you're on. And some sites let you make editions, and you can choose the edition number, and some require you to do a unique piece.
So I think you're getting at some of what people have begun to ask here in the Q&A. I want to, if you don't mind, I just want to kind of go through and make sure we're not missing anybody's questions and things. I want to try to get to. So John asked, what is a node?
What is a node? It's like one computer thing verifying. That's my understanding of it. That could be incorrect. So there's you know, computers all over the world that are verifying transactions. My understanding that each one would be a node. That could be wrong. That's my understanding of it.
Okay, fair enough. Arlene asks, how does one price work? Seems like it is auction. Oh yeah. So
yeah, that's what I answered some of hers, but I didn't answer her.
Is that correct? And can you do additions? And what is the common more used addition amount? If you're doing additions, do you need to do it on the same site you're minting it at? So some questions about additions and pricing.
Yeah. So I mean, technically you could mint the same artwork on 10 different websites, but you'd get kicked off of them. You know, so you basically are saying, you know, if you put it on Super Rare and you make one, you sign a thing saying you're not also going to mint it again on Known Origin and make 2 more, and then mint it again on OpenSea and make another edition of 10. And, you know, but that's like the regular art world. If you make an edition of a prints and make 3 prints, and then the next year you print the same thing and you make an edition of 5 of them, people are going to stop buying your work because you're not honoring your editions.
But in this case, like say you mint, you have a JPEG and you mint it. You mint an edition of 2.
Yep.
But the JPEG, anybody can just be downloading the JPEG and copying the JPEG could exist in an infinite number, but the edition technically is just those that were minted, right? And that's the edition of 2.
There's 2 tokens that can be resold.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like a certificate of authenticity.
Yes. Right. John asks, how does an owner of NFTs display their collection? In your house, you have the walls, but how are these shown to others? Thank you.
Great question. There are these 3D worlds like crypto voxels and Decentraland, where you can buy land, which is really expensive. I looked at it. It's like the same price as real land now. And you could build a gallery and then you could put your artwork in the gallery. Or if you look at the NFT Now show, it's in something called Kunstmatrix, which is a lot cheaper. It's not like a physical land world. And you can have a 3D space and share your artwork. And then there are also 2D things where you can share your artwork. There's a company called Infinite Objects that encapsulates your video in an acrylic screen that just plugs in and it shows it. It's probably better for moving works than a still image, but you could put a still image on it too. I think NFTs appeal a lot to younger, very screen-oriented people who are not so bothered that all their artwork's in their screens.
Mm-hmm. So basically, broadly speaking, I mean, if the works that you've minted or the works that you own that have been minted are digital files, then you display them, share them, access them in any way that you display, share, and access digital files. And those could be still images, those could be time-based media, right? I mean, it could be music.
You could have sound, so it's also, we didn't talk about audio NFTs, but musicians are starting to make NFTs, and that's a really exciting area as well. And there's audio-visual NFTs. So you have, you know, a moving thing and you have a music or sound environment with it. And then it's better to see it on a screen as sort of in its native, you know, space.
We have a lot of questions. I'm so grateful for everyone's interest and questions. I'm going to try to work through them all. Thank you all for your patience. Arlene said, I minted on OpenSea and it didn't cost me. I didn't publish it though, minted it for the open call you had.
Yeah, so that's lazy minting.
Okay. John says, thank you. This is fantastic. Thank you, John. Does it cost the artist roughly $100 per piece that they list on OpenSea or another site?
You can decide what price you don't decide on the gas price or the fee for minting once you mint it, but to sell it, if you set a price, you can choose any price.
But I think he means the minting price.
It changes every day. So right now it's around $200.
Okay.
Or on OpenSea, before you sell it, it's nothing because of their
okay, like what Arlene was just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. But right now, if you're minting on OpenSea, it's like around $200, you said? Or
you're minting on super rare, which makes you actually mint the piece, like make the token. It's around $200 something. So what I checked before the talk.
Okay.
Which is a lot. Like that's a lot, you know. It keeps you from like minting up a bunch of pieces just on spec.
Sure. You know, we don't have to go too far down this this tangent, but I just want to. It occurs to me that, you know, there's a big industry in like collectibles, like tangible hard copy collectibles, like baseball cards, like collectible cards, Pokemon cards, comic books. And there's a big industry where like you send them off and get them encased in a thing and they get a barcode and they get a condition report. And then that is that one, you know, that barcode applies only to that one copy of that book that exists in however many copies. In a way, it feels like that's maybe kind of analogous. That's like minting that one. Like there are some unknown number and, you know, unlimited number of copies of this thing. But when I send it off to this place that mints it, it gets its barcode. Now it's an identifiable, definable, numbered, limited item.
With the Beeple sale, with his everydays, which isn't the big 5,000 one, but the individual pieces, they IOs, these infinite object video things. Yeah. And then each one had a QR code in it that was associated with the NFT. So I think it's exactly like that.
So Bob asked, where are the resources? I assume what Bob's referring to is the resources that you mentioned in your presentation. And Bob, we'll put those up tomorrow or the next day on our website, brattleboromuseum.org. Paul writes, The Economist had an article where they asserted that the digital file associated with an NFT could be changed, swapped out, or substituted so that there was no guarantee of ongoing authenticity. Are they correct? Have you encountered this problem?
I have not, fortunately, encountered that problem. Theoretically, I believe that can happen. The pointer could be lost, the file could be changed. You're basically paying someone to keep that file. So if they stop getting paid, they can let it get written over and it could be gone. It's definitely a technical issue. If you purchase the NFT, you can download the file though. You know, so you have the token and you can download the file.
You have the token. The token's on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Token's on the blockchain, and you can download the file.
And you can download the file, so you can keep track of the file yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, that is. I think there are technical issues, and there was an article where someone through some security hole managed to mint something out of someone else's wallet.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely some security issues.
Real quick, like, is it because we're at an early Wild West stage of this? Like, do you feel like those issues are going to get sorted out?
Yeah, I do. I do think, I mean, people are working on them. So I do think that I don't think they're unsolvable issues, you know, technologically.
Yeah. Anonymous writes, this is great. It seems that the risk is no different than a regular gallery regarding lost or damaged work or not being paid, except for devaluation or cost of making. Can you talk a little about risks to the artist and if there's a limit?
The risks are no different than a regular gallery, i.e. lost or damaged work. I'm not understanding that. The risks are totally different because you get paid immediately when someone buys the work. So with a regular gallery, you have huge risk that you never get paid. Here, you have zero risk because you get paid right away. Maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Okay.
And I'm not understanding the lost or damaged work. I guess I'm not understanding the question.
Okay, fair enough.
And I guess, yeah, I don't know if the artist, like if the whole NFT ecosystem blows up and then someone writes to me saying, I bought this thing and now I can't see it. Like, what are my responsibilities? That I don't know the answer to that one. I have the file, so you know.
You can lose access to the work, to the files. You can lose access to your tokens. Maybe is what this person's referring to. Anonymous, if you care to clarify,
elaborate more, maybe.
Yeah. Robert writes, what about the schmoozing with a gallery? And what do you do with an NFT? Look at it on your computer? Isn't this simply a complete digital commodification of art?
Commodification of something is when it loses its value because it's sort of interchangeable with something else, is when something becomes a commodity. So I don't think technically it's a commodification of art. It's making it more valuable. So in that way, I think it's the opposite. I'm not sure what you mean about schmoozing with a gallery, like to buy the artwork, maybe.
I'm going to interpret Robert's questions as, what about the whole like social experience surrounding it? Like, yeah. And if not literally commodification, I think maybe he means, isn't this like an unfortunate example of taking the humanity and the socializing and the social piece out of it?
Ultimate capitalization of artwork. It's literally making artwork into money. Like, it's making it into a token, cryptocurrency token. So it's like extreme, maybe capitalist approach to art making and collecting. I don't think it's going to replace the entire art world. There's a really great community around NFTs. So it has it's actually a wonderful social aspect to it. That's very enjoyable. And some galleries have opened to sell NFTs and they put screens in them to sell NFTs, this Konig gallery, and there are galleries online that sell NFTs, but I think some physical spaces will also show the NFTs. But I don't think it will replace the gallery world or the social aspect of the art world, you know, and it shouldn't. I mean, there's positive things about the art world as well. So I don't think the idea is to get rid of, you know, everything in the regular art world.
With galleries that are moving into selling NFTs, how does they play with the platforms? Like, doesn't the platform already serve the function of the gallery? Like, where is the room for the gallery to be involved in this?
Yeah, well, that's a good question that some artists are asking. And some, like this artist, Sarah Luddy, who works through Bitforums, has insisted that it kind of gives the artist more power because the money comes right to the artist, doesn't go through the gallery. That
Yeah.
The gallery workers got a percentage of her proceeds of sales. So artists are doing interesting things with that power. I think there's still a role for galleries because if you go on these sites, there's just thousands and thousands of images of things. How do you look through that? How do you find stuff that's, you know, interesting artwork that's going to retain its value that someone has curated and thought about and put together, you know? So I think there are roles for gallerists, and, you know, you go to a gallery and they've selected those artists and put in that work.
Sure. So there's a valuable filtering and curatorial role, maybe. Yeah. But from a technical standpoint, the galleries aren't getting involved in minting the NFTs, right? They still have to work through the platform.
I think some galleries are, but it's hard. Like if you mint it, you own it, you know, and you're getting the money. So like ideally, I think the artists would be the ones minting it. And then the gallery would sell it and maybe provide some sort of, you know, information and support. And
Here's a question from Tommy, or a comment. I was told that all cryptocurrency and blockchains will be obsolete when quantum computing allows for the processing speeds necessary to defeat the cryptography via brute force methods of trying every possible password for every wallet. I feel like I might be printing artwork on a photo paper that might fade in a few years.
When and if quantum computing works, all current cryptography will be obsolete. But then you can use quantum computing cryptography for it. So you could change it. Better cryptography. But there'd be like a national security issue if overnight quantum computing arrived.
Right. Well, and we have an analog right now, right? I mean, because we have kind of very compromised, antiquated systems of authentication.
We have an oil pipeline we can't access in the East Coast, right? Like we have problems already.
Right. Anonymous asks, if an artwork is sold via, these are terrific questions and comments, by the way, thank you everyone. If an artwork is sold via cryptocurrency and the money lands in a bank, is the money guaranteed in a sale?
I'm not totally sure what that means. The money lands in a bank.
Sold is a money, yeah. I'm not exactly
sold
sure
in
what
a
that
cryptocurrency,
means.
you can then sell the cryptocurrency and you can exchange it for dollars.
Yeah.
And then it's just regular dollars or whatever currency you'd exchanged it for.
And it's subject to the fluctuation in valuation of the cryptocurrency between when you effect the sale and when you cash it out in dollars.
Yeah. Sorry, Anonymous. I'm like opaque with your. If you rephrase it, maybe I can answer it better.
This is one of the. I mean, it's so wonderful to have access to this format that we're using right now, and I don't even know where all these people are out in the world, but surely we wouldn't have managed to have you all together if we had done this as a live event in Brattleboro. But one of the limitations is this kind of somewhat, you know, like you type, you try to be as clear as you can, and then if we don't get it, it's not easy to have the exchange back and forth. Carrie Lee writes, thank you, Anne. This is very informative. What's been your favorite part of trying this new way of presenting art? There are some in mainstream fine art that still do not accept photography or illustration either. So resistance to new art forms is nothing new.
It's so true. It's so true. So, you know, I was at Brown in the 80s, and they didn't have a dark room because photography wasn't fine art. So yeah, you know, it's like the William Gibson thing, like the future's here, it's just not evenly distributed. But I love the asynchronous nature of it. So I could be making artwork at 3 in.the morning. I could post it at 4 in.the morning. I can sleep in till 11. I could wake up and it could be sold. The buyers are from all over the world. you know, so it's very out of time and place. It's just like this constant international 24/7 marketplace.
Cool. Terry writes, do you have to have a particular style for NFT? Can I NFT my older digital art from the early 90s, which is very different from my present style? And this was fantastic. I really enjoyed your presentation. Great to see you live.
Terry's a really great writer, science fiction writer. Thanks for the question. And I kind of feel like you shouldn't just NFT your old artwork. It sort of depends, though. It sort of depends on whether presenting it as an NFT makes any sense, you know, with it on the blockchain. I think in general, if it's just something that it's a painting that you did, but now you made it into an NFT, that probably is not going to sell well, because why did you make it into an NFT? Like, what does it have to do with the blockchain or anything? Like, why isn't it just still a painting? I think people gravitate more toward work that has something to do with kind of this medium or technological way of presenting the work. So I've tried to look back at earlier work and think, oh, like, could I make this into an NFT? And it's never felt right to me. But I have seen some things that have been minted that were just regular paintings and became NFTs that did make sense to me. So I think it depends on the artwork.
Well, and do you think what the whole thing that you just described, the whole response that you had, is just a very idiosyncratic, personal, subjective thing that would vary from one person to the next, or like?
I think it would be hard, based on what I've seen of the marketplace. It would be harder to sell things that are, unless you were like a famous artist.
So there's a certain aesthetic that's prevailing in the marketplace at this point. Like if I take this hour and a half long recording that we're going to have at the end of the night tonight and mint that and try to sell that, like,
right?
I'm not going to make a lot of money.
Who knows? See, that's the kind of like funny, weird thing that it might sell and make money. Like, has a museum minted any of their talks? I don't think so. So you can like do that. It'd be like a publicity stunt, like Jack Dorsey selling his first tweet, and you know, people are minting covers of magazines and articles. And
so now I'm inferring from what you're saying that, you know, in response to the question, it might depend on what that artwork that he was making in the 90s was. Like it sounds like there are certain aesthetics that you're getting a sense of as being successful and prevailing in the NFT marketplace now. So just the fact that it's old is not necessarily a deal breaker.
No.
But it's a question of maybe whether it matches up with the kinds of things that people are in this space and the people who are in this space are buying.
Yeah, and because they're not buying traditional artwork, like they're only buying these things. But maybe you have a painting and then you bring it onto your computer and maybe you're going to do something else with it. You're going to make it move or, you know, either process it in some way where suddenly it does feel like it makes sense in this
world. Renee asks, what types of files are acceptable? JPEG, PNG, PDF, TIFF, PSD, How big can files be and what's the file size limit if there is one?
It's platform dependent, but mostly JPEGs and MP4s or MOV for moving things, and mostly 50 megabytes as a file size limit. But again, it is different on different platforms.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so you can't like make your hour-and-a-half full-length movie in a meaningful way.
Okay. Anonymous says rare rooms is another good one regarding virtual displays.
Cool. I'll check that out. I haven't seen that.
And another anonymous says, thank you, Anne, great talk. Can you add links to these various resources to the presentation as well, the tokenizing sites, digital frame recs, et cetera? So whatever links you end up being inclined to put in the presentation, we'll make those available somewhere on the website.
Most of them are already there, but I can add like the IOs and CryptoVoxels, some of the display places. I can add in there.
Okay. Okay. And for those of you who are going to go to our website and look for this info, I think what we're going to do, we have a section of our website under events that is a video archive, and that's where you'll find the video of tonight's session. Maybe we'll put the link to the presentation in there as well in the video archive, or maybe under events, you can go to past events and find the page that you had to go to register for this event tonight. And we'll also put the link to the slides there. So that's probably where we'll end up putting it. Carrie asks, how do you NFT a series?
You could just mint them all at once, or when I have things that I know because I created them that there will be more than one and they're similar, I put in the description, from the series, the series name, so people know that there's going to be more of them, because maybe I don't want them all up at the same time, so especially the first one or two, like people wouldn't know it's a series unless you explicitly say, so I just put it in the description.
Tommy writes, this was a fantastic and informative presentation. Thank you, Anne.
Thanks, Tommy.
And Lindsay writes, you've got me curious and inspired. Thank you for this webinar and your time.
Thank you.
Very, very kind of all of you. Thank you. Carrie Lee writes again, it costs $200 to frame a piece for a gallery, which is on spec of a different kind. So risk is risk for an artist, but the frame can be reused. The movement to non-physical investments is a bit different. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you decide you don't want your piece on the site, you have to burn it. And guess what? There's a fee.
Kim writes, thank you, Anne. Such a great presentation. Have to go, but loved learning more and love your work.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim.
Anonymous, I think, was responding to the question we were grappling with earlier and says, you answered it. There's no support for the unexpected. Okay. Yeah.
No customer support.
Arlene writes, thank you so much and great to see your enthusiasm, and thanks, Danny. Thank you, Arlene. And let me just take a quick look over on Facebook and see if there are comments over there. I don't see any that have come in over there. And Jessica writes, brilliant presentation as always, Anne. Thank you to all. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
So, that I think is everyone's questions and comments. Those were wonderful. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for your attention and your interest. And I'm glad you found this useful.
Hanging out for so long.
I'm sorry.
And hanging out for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Anne, I just have a few things I need to mention before we wrap up. But did you also want to, those who have stuck around, did you want to give a quick glimpse of your show NFT Now, or not?
Sure, I'll just show the environment, and since there were questions about the environment, let me pop into that. I'm going into it right through Kunstmatrix, but it's on this TExpressionism.com site, and it will be one of the links. And it's just this cool 3D space.
Mm-hmm.
So you go in and you can move back and forth with your mouse. And then when you get close to an artwork, if there's video, you'll start to see it. You can hear it too.
And if I remember from when I was searching around there, like exploring around the show, you can also click in such a way that you get like a detailed view and you get written information about the piece, and you can just advance from one to the next, like decontextualized, not on the walls and in the space, in the 3D space, right?
So when you click on it, then you go into this 2D view, and you can get a write-up about the work, information about the artist, and a link which either goes to their website or possibly their NFTs. And yeah, and then if you don't enjoy the 3D environment or you get tired of going around, you can just advance.
I love that piece.
My AI work.
Yeah.
Josh Craig, who did the music.
That's so cool.
Tommy Mintz, who asked one of the questions with this time-based photography. So he takes a whole bunch of pictures in one spot, and then they're algorithmically composed together. So it kind of draws on the tradition of street photography, but it has this modern computer-based approach. Clive Holden has this series of internet mountains, and this is one of the first color photographs ever made. And then he has these animated sort of bokeh UFO circles flying around. Yeah, and then when you exit the detail view, you see. So this is an example of one of the pieces that was actually a physical work and was minted. But to me, this made total sense because it was a graffiti work. So it says bro. So to me, it's like crypto bro with all the gold and everything. And then it was made into an NFT. So to me, the idea of someone buying this with cryptocurrency and it's NFT of a painting that's graffiti that says bro, but now it's like graffiti on the internet. That just made total sense to me.
It feels to me like it's like whether oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, there's not time to talk about all the work, but they're all really amazing work. So it's a fun show to go in and explore more. This is really beautiful, based on Andy Thomas's trips in Australia. With he has the animated ones too. If you go to his NFT site with bird sounds and images from the forest, are all interpreted in 3D. Devante's Basquiat inspired piece. Go ahead, though. You were saying something.
No, it's okay. But what I will say is that to me, one of the things that's so interesting, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, is going to be to see what happens in this space with the contextualization of the artwork. Because you have the digital artwork itself, but there's not really a reason necessarily why we need to present it on a screen that's made to sort of look like a brick and mortar museum space or gallery space. Like if we just start with the idea is to present the digital files in a really compelling way, it seems to me eventually, as some more, creativity comes into this and experimenting comes into this process, we could end up with some really new and different ways of presenting and interacting with the work that feel very different than walking around the gallery and looking at a label that has some written text and stuff.
Absolutely. Like we could be at the sort of theater stage of movie going, where we're just replicating.
Right.
Yes, this is Mondrian's Boogie Woogie, but this is a full-on simulation with traffic lights and collision detection of all of the elements.
I love that one.
By John Simon.
Terrific. Well, that show looks great, and you'll include a link to that.
Yeah, that's in there.
In the slides as well.
One of the generative artworks from that art block site.
Great. Well, Anne, I think we ought to wrap it up there. Unless there was anything else that you were hoping to add or touch on.
No, I think I covered everything. Unless I see there's one. There's one comment in the chat. Hoping we can still interact through art in person. It would be a shame if all of this was done on a screen with no human interaction face to face. Absolutely. And after a year spent like living all the time in my house and not going out, I could not agree more. So it's nice to have the option and have this as well, but it definitely does not replace actual world and meeting with actual people.
For sure it doesn't, but I will note again, it also creates the opportunity for interaction, admittedly a screen mitigated interaction, but between people who might not connect otherwise, who almost certainly wouldn't connect otherwise. Like I feel like one of the silver linings of this last year has been the opportunity to connect with all kinds of people who I never would have had any engagement with whatsoever if we weren't forced to do this kind of Zoom stuff.
Yeah, and I think for artists especially, not having to be in a city like New York, it's been particularly great for artists from South America or places where selling something for a few $1,000s is literally, they can live for months off of it. It's been life changing for artists in the US, but I think even more for artists from other countries who had no access to our art market and suddenly are having the art collected all over. And it's really amazing. So I love that it's bringing in more people from all over into the world of visual content creation and more collectors. So I didn't really talk about the collecting side, but I think it's opened up art collection to more people. You don't have to go to a gallery and have someone kind of condescend to you, which even I know like longtime art collectors who feel condescended to by galleries, or that it's like sometimes problematic buying artwork. And it's you know, it's, you want collectors who are going to take the collecting artwork seriously, but also maybe you want to open up the idea of collecting art to more people to enjoy that process and artwork and enjoy it.
Sure, and if you could fold back in the useful function of the gallerist, which is helping filter and get, you know, help you focus on what you're interested in and get clear on what you're interested in. If you could filter that, if you could, you know, work that back in to the, what sounds like in some ways a more, I don't know what the right adjective is actually exactly, like democratic or equitable or even playing field kind of process, then that might be best of all worlds. Well, so there's so much more for us to learn about and talk about, and maybe we'll do subsequent events on these topics. And in your,
it happens. It's changing so fast. So
yeah, exactly. So before we sign off, I just want to reiterate the recording of tonight's event will be available on our website within the next day or two. That's brattleboromuseum.org. Please find it there and share it with people who you think might be interested who weren't able to attend tonight. When you're there at our website, you can check out recordings of dozens of other events that we've been presenting online over the past year. As I mentioned, those are under events and then video archive. And if you're in the Brattleboro area and you're interested in an actual in-person, non-screen-based art experience, well, please come to the museum any Wednesday through Sunday, 10 to 4. We're there and we're open, and there's plenty of room for social distancing. And Vermont's doing a great job with people getting vaccinated and feeling safer and safer. We're even having an indoor-outdoor party this Saturday at 5:30 p.m. to celebrate our spring exhibits that are up right now. Many of the exhibiting artists and curators will be there. Please feel free to join us. There will be food and drink outside, and then when you go inside, you'll have to wear masks, so leave food and drink behind, and we'll have to maintain capacity limits and social distancing and stuff inside. But we have it all figured out and are excited about that and optimistic that that'll go well. So please join us for that. I think that does it. Anne, thank you again for sharing your expertise and enthusiasm and insight with us. And you're such a wonderful communicator and educator. I'm so grateful for this. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for everyone for the questions.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. Stay safe, everyone. Take good care of yourselves. Hope to see you all soon. Good night.